get straight into the questions.
Okay.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no worries.
If you don't mind just telling us your first name,
My name is Kiersten.
and we'll just go on and get straight into the questions. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Absolutely. I grew up in a small town, maybe 4,500 people in the middle of Illinois. Definitely a white town. So, my childhood, I learned a lot of white mannerisms. I have a white mom, so I was in a full white household, and a lot of it just, was just grinding through that country lifestyle. Definitely opposed to my personality, I'd say, but my childhood was fun. It was rough and dirty and around four-wheelers and tractors and cornfields and just all of the things that you think about the country. Of course, the people too. I definitely would say it was fun, but it had its pros and cons for sure.
What were your dreams as a child?
I wanted to be an astronaut. I actually sometimes still do. Space, just the stars in the Midwest, that's something that it's just extremely beautiful at night. You get a clear picture of just everything that's out there, the map of almost, the little universe. Of course, you don't see the planets. But I was always just so intrigued as a child. So I always just dreamed of growing up and just getting to space somehow. An astronaut kind of felt right there.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about your relationship with your dad and how that generally felt?
Yeah, so I didn't really have a relationship with my dad. I don't actually know my dad. My biological dad, he's just somewhere in this lifetime here. I did have some really great male figures growing up, and I have a rocking stepdad. But it was kind of tough growing up. Of course, like I said, I grew up in a white town, a white home, so the only African American side to me was my dad, and not having that in the picture didn't give me a lot of culture, didn't give me a lot of structure, and also curated a lot of anger of just what is this side of me that I don't know that is obviously different than every single thing around me. Um, my stepdad is kind of the laid back country guy, very burly, kind of lumberjack looking. He's very resemblant to my sister. I have one sister. She's a redhead, blue eyes, so completely different than I am, but definitely resembles my sister, which they both, interestingly enough, have the exact same birthday, so they represent a lot of the same energy.
And you can also you can look at me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm like,
it's okay.
like
It's
I hope
okay.
my eyes are okay.
Oh yeah, no worries. What about your relationship with your mom and how that felt?
It was pretty okay after, I'd say, when I was 12. My grandmother had a big influence in my life up until then. She did pass away at that time. Me and my mom went just back and forth. She was a really young mother, so growing up and just kind of experiencing herself and learning herself and raising kids at that time, I think, causes a lot of young women different struggles in ways. So it went back and forth, but I feel now I can respect her in a different way of really understanding her and also understanding what she went through and trying to work so hard to make sure that we had a very well life. So I'd say about 50-50 growing up. I had like an okay relationship with her, but now I feel it's 100%. We're really strong, very bonded, and we can communicate about some of those struggles that she might have occurred as a young woman, just raising me and my sister.
What were some of those struggles?
She definitely worked all the time. Definitely, we were going to my grandmother's at 6:30 in the morning, going from school from my grandmother's until back. So there wasn't a lot of communication. I felt like my mom was so absent all the time, and we never really were at home. Of course, she tried her best to keep us in our home, but jumping from babysitter to babysitter and my grandmother, it was one of those things as a child I don't think I understood, and also kind of being a little confused of my mom's my only support system. My mom's the only person that I do know because I don't fully have like a father figure. So it was one of those things where I think she tried her hardest to communicate with us and give us all the love and give us all the attention that we needed, but sometimes it kind of went through the cracks.
How did that feel when it went through the cracks?
I definitely don't think it felt great. It was one of those things where, as children, I don't think we understand really what's going on. We're just in a mind full of all of these thoughts, feelings, actions, and we just kind of want all these fun, adventurous things to happen. And it definitely felt a little low. As a child, you're wondering and questioning, like, where's mom? What is she doing? Why isn't she with us? Why am I always with grandma? You know, not being able to really connect with your person, like your mother, I think is something that made me feel pretty down and pretty out. But as a child, something that didn't affect me enough as an adult. But I think it is something that whenever you are a child and you're looking at, you know, you're questioning every single thing that's around you. Um, and I think it definitely questioned some of my opinions and a lot of my thoughts.
You said there were some pros and cons of growing up in an all-white neighborhood in the country. What were some of the pros and cons?
Definitely, I'd say the pros, I have a very structural way of living. I feel like I can just normally exist, if that makes sense, where I don't typically see myself as black or someone of color. I just typically blend in society, which has kind of helped me as an adult. But I also think a lot of the cons are I wasn't able to fully be me. And growing up in basically just an all white neighborhood, surrounding towns are mostly white, you only get this one version of the way people think, one version of the way people act. I As I look back on that time, I realized that I was just like living like a robot. I was dressing like how these younger white girls wanted to dress, doing my hair, like permanently straightening it and cutting it like a white girl, and not realizing that I was damaging my personality in so many ways. And it sucked because if you didn't do that, then you weren't really recognized. You couldn't really have friends. When you grow up in a class size of maybe 30 to 60 people, you know every single person there. You're going to school with people who know your mom, your grandma, most of your family line. So not being able to fit in or feel like you fit in one of the smallest towns, it definitely brings a con. And I think me, I'm one of those people that I just kind of fit outside the crowd. And so it was definitely a struggle for me to tone. It almost felt like toning my personality down just to approach a lot of these people through middle school, high school, and even as a young adult growing up there.
What are some of the biggest things you learned from your parents that can also be abstractly from your lack of having your biological father there, or however you want to answer that?
Yeah, I definitely have a really strong respect, and I don't want to say for good men, but for strong men. I've kind of seen, and it's not my father's fault whatsoever that he's not in the picture, but I think I've been able to recognize what it could look like through that line of just as a child thinking, why aren't you here? My father doesn't want to be around me, to how men can be strong and other men can be nurturing to you regardless of their blood. And truly, I think my stepdad was able to show me what to expect real love from a man. And I'm really grateful for that, to just be okay of just understanding love and emotion and life. And I also think, too, having a really strong connection of seeing that bond with him and my mother and being able to just be so strong together and have unity, and just understanding that they can show me that love and compassion and unity, and also be okay with not doing everything that they should have done, or having mistakes, or not making the perfect picture. And I just think that that showed me a lot as an adult, to forgive and somewhat forget, and to have unity and to have love, and walk with life through love instead of have a hated mindset of a general picture of a certain type of person.
Could you tell us about your first love and how that felt? It's whatever you associate as your first love. It can be a person, it can be a hobby, it can be just whatever comes to mind.
I definitely think my first love was music. I love music so much with a passion, and I think that it allows us to kind of drain out all the feelings, the thoughts, feelings, and actions of the world and just zone into sometimes the beats, the background, like a certain tone and pitch. I've always, as a young child, just been intrigued and interested in music. My first instrument that I wanted to play, I think I was about maybe in between 7 and 9, so fairly young. I remember hearing the violin on like a country station, my grandma's house, and I was like, wow, that's just so beautiful. And from then, I picked up the violin and started learning it and playing orchestra, and then went into band and played the saxophone, and just allowing myself to create music and be one with music. It just felt so comforting and so calming in so many different ways.
What about your first loss or heartbreak and how that felt? Same thing, whatever you associate with those words.
I definitely think my biggest loss and heartbreak was the passing of my grandmother. Whenever you said, what was your first love? I almost immediately said her. But then I could correlate it with heartbreak too, because she showed me so much genuine compassion and love for just me as a young person that when she passed, she had passed of breast cancer. And so a lot of it was so crazy because she was just about to get off of chemo. Like everything looked on the up and up, and then almost immediately it downturned. And so it just made me feel so hopeless in the sense of being a young child and being like, wow, I felt like we were so close, like we were gonna get her back and no more chemo. And then almost immediately things had changed. So I think that experiencing death and experiencing death from someone so close to me truly dampened my heart for a little bit, for sure.
How old were you?
I was 12.
How were at being 12 years old? How was that? Like, how did you process that at 12 years old, and how were the emotions at 12 years old?
It's one of those things where I don't know if you fully process it. And it's crazy because my mother and I were talking about it, and she was telling me that even this year it feels like she finally processed the death of her mother. And I think to an extent I might still be processing it because in that time being so young, a part of me didn't really know what was happening until you're standing in front of the gravestone and you're watching them go under the ground. And at that point in time, it kind of brings that realization that, like, they're gone, but you don't really know it until you go to the house and routinely they're not there and the energy is gone and you're not able to communicate with them. And even for a couple of years after, she still had her ringtone, and I'd call the phone just to hear the ringtone. And I think it's one of those things where you just try and hold on to every little thing that you can until you process it fully. But I'm a firm believer that energy is power, and we all are powerful energy sources. And so I think now as an adult, I feel very positive, and I'm a firm believer too that everything happens for a reason. So I think her passing almost was a really beautiful reason in whichever walk of life that I'm headed towards. But it definitely felt, it's like a very overwhelming feeling as you're in that state of like, wow, my life has changed and now I have to adapt. But how?
Who would you say first taught you love and how?
I think I would bring that back to my grandmother again. She, in a lot of my life, just being surrounded by different people, younger friends of my mother, I think having that grounding from my grandmother, just being able to show me true, compassionate, love from a being that was all about me and not about what my skin color looked like or what I thought my personality was or any of the things in between. She was very, very ingrained in me and who I was. And if I was into art, what art are we creating? And what do we want to look into? Or what book do we want to see? And I feel like that just full compassion to me being me and growing up and being me really showed me that first sign of how to love and love other people too, without judgment, without shame, without anything in between, because society puts a lot of just damper on when we meet people, when we talk to people, and how we approach their energy. And I think she showed me a lot of compassionate love to reciprocate that in the world.
What's love to you? How do you define love to you? How has it changed throughout the years? Or how have you added to it, or however you want to word it?
Yeah, I feel like love is peace. Love is understanding and it's compassion, and sometimes it's sensual, but sometimes it can just not be sensual. It can be in between just two people guiding each other through life, or with an animal, or whatever energy source it is. And for me, I think love is everything. Now, as a young adult, I feel like I just want to live through and with love. I want to be able to approach people with love and kindness and joy and allow that to spread throughout the world in small little itty bitty pieces. And I think for me, just being a young adult, I had met my partner about almost 6 years ago, where he had kind of shown me a lot of love and a lot of growth and a lot of just ability also to be me and be okay with being me. And I think a lot of things that I'm working on is just understanding what is my personality, what is my culture, who am I as a full developed source, and seeing that full love from him of just complete support is something that I fully love and just want to reciprocate as much as you can. And also too, giving love. I have a small little family of a rabbit and 3 cats, and just amplifying my energy to give them love and to nurture them and allow them to be happy when they're running around. It really brightens the world when you see and give and show action and energy with love.
What's a good day look like for you?
Not every day is a good day, but a good day is being able to wake up mostly hopefully with the sun and just breathe and collect my mind, allow myself to meditate and really zone in on the day and where we're at, and allow myself to be okay with what happens in the day. Because like I said, not every day is going to be a good day, and you can tell yourself over and over and over, it's going to be a good day, it's going to be a good day, and then someone pulls out in front of you in a car, or something random happens at work. So it's always just trying to be zoned in and present in the moment and breathing throughout the day and reminding myself that we are in a good day.
What's a bad day look like for you, and how do you get through it?
A bad day definitely is full of anxiety and overwhelming feelings. Definitely it happens. We try not to have bad days, but they just kind of creep up on us. With that, I just really try and breathe through it. I love breath. I love breath work. I just love being able to zone in on our lungs and being able to just mindfully take a moment to deeply breathe in and breathe out. One simple breath easily could turn a very chaotic situation into something not so chaotic. And it allows you to take a moment and think about how to respond. How do you think you should respond, or if response is applicable at all? So I think too, just kind of reminding myself of my alignments, where am I feeling triggered? If it's a person, a place, a thing, an object, how do I cycle around that?
What's a person or an event that's shaped you, good or bad?
It's an interesting question. I think a big event that has shaped me very good has been moving to Colorado. I definitely think that event was a point in time for me where I was ready to take a stance for me and figure out what I like, where my personality really stands from, what type of clothing am I interested in, everything in between there, which seems so simple, but it has almost been life changing to just allow myself to dig deep into who I am and what I believe in versus what I've just been ingrained through almost 20 years of my life. I definitely think events in between have been super powerful, but the move just to do it by myself, like I'm out here by myself, I don't have any family, and I'm just making friends on the way. So it's just an adventure that is extremely powerful.
What inspires you?
Ambition. And I hate to use the word success because success is it has so many ins and outs, but maybe the peace that comes with success, ambition and the peacefulness of success. I just love imagination and being able to curate all of these beautiful ideas that allow me to zone in on what I want to do and how it can prosper and how it can help other people. And I've always felt like a young entrepreneur, even in maybe middle school and high school, of just creating random things that I thought could be helpful or enjoyable or something that would connect with someone that is just so simple and small and creative. And I think as I grow older, I'm really turned on by ambition and I just am driven by what's to come.
What's been a humbling experience for you?
I definitely think starting a small business has been extremely humbling. It's one of those things where I didn't think that it would be so impactful, but working with energy and working with other people and seeing how my small creative idea can prosper to really help someone, to make them feel something. And I've had a lot of responses of people like, wow, since I've gotten this product from you, I have felt so changed. Or I was really hoping for love and self love. And since I've gotten this bracelet, I've felt so connected to you. Or maybe not to you, but to themselves and whomever they're around. And it just gives me such a humbling feeling to be able to help and heal and know the energy is around us and I can use it in ways that make me feel so good and other people feel really great.
Go on your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war?
With the word war?
War.
I can. My grandfather had fought in the Vietnam War, and it's not something that I fully remember, but just the energy surrounded by it, the absence and just the unknown. War to me just has a lot of anxiety wrapped around it. And sometimes there's peace, but a lot of times it comes after war, and there is just so much commotion and chaos. And to me, whenever I even envision the word war, I think about, I just could see red and black and just almost dark energy surrounded by it, regardless of the matter. And I think it's just something where it can be really great or it can be really traumatic. And I think I fall in the middle of just traumatic feelings, but also feeling like we're progressing in good ways with the word war.
It's the same type of question. Go on your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time that you can relate to the word peace?
Absolutely. When I think of the word peace, the automatic thing that comes to my head is just Woodstock. I think I'm kind of a hippie at heart, so maybe that's what jumps to me, that hippie era of just going with the flow and being sporadic and having love and just showing peace. I think that's what immediately jumps into my head from that. But I think I feel peace in a lot of different areas. I feel like I could walk by a really peaceful person and just feel that peaceful energy from them and just be around peace. I feel like our world has a lot of peace in it. We just have to find it. There's a lot of corruption around it, but there's a lot of beautiful peace in the world. And just kind of walking through some parts of life, I feel like peace can represent itself in different people, different forms. And it definitely, peace to me makes me smile. Like, I would love to see and feel more peace.
How does it feel?
Sometimes I feel like it's hard to explain how I feel when I talk about energy or I can see energy in specific places. I feel like it's a rush of just tingly little goosebumps all throughout my body. Of if it's very beautiful and good, it could be just warm and cuddly and just a very happy feeling. Or if it's something very traumatic and scary, then it can be something that's jarring, where my body or my skin could feel cold. And I feel like it's a very physical effect of these things that I'm feeling, or the energy that is prominent in these places. But I think that's kind of to each their own situation of how it feels. But most of the time, when it comes to good situations, it's very comforting. It's something that makes me feel at home, like I've been there before.
Can you describe when you see that energy? The good and the bad.
Yeah, I definitely can feel it and see it everywhere. I feel like I'm a very, I definitely think I describe myself as an empath. I am very sensitive to energy from humans, but also very sensitive to energy around. And maybe a lot of that could come from where I'm from. In the middle of Illinois, there's tons of history. There's tons of energy, and you're surrounded also by woods where, I mean, I personally love the woods, but sometimes the woods can have very intricate, unique energy because a lot of things can happen. You're in the middle of a wood. And so I think just depending on the situation, even sometimes when I travel, I can just feel different energy. And even from people that hold a lot of negative energy, just almost like walking by them and feeling that energy is like a waft of wind to you, where you're just overtaken by a lot. And I stop and think, like, what's going on? And of course, if you know the person or you're around someone similar, sometimes you can dissect it, but sometimes it's like, wow, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of interesting colors, whether they be very dark or whether they be very light. There's something kind of in this perimeter here.
So feeling all those emotions and just being empathic, how do you deal with the emotions of negativity? Because you would feel them amplified. The same way you also get to feel, the gift, you feel the love amplified too. So how do you deal with those dark, negative energy?
Yeah, it's definitely been a growing process. I feel it's interesting because I feel like I've been approached with a lot more negative energies and entities out here in Colorado than I have for a lot of my life, where I've really had to innovate some things in my protective barrier. For me, whenever I'm hit with a lot of negative emotions, whether I'm talking with someone face to face and they're releasing the negative tension that they have, or walking by a place that just homes a ton of negative energy or maybe a lot of negative spirit energy, I just feel extremely overwhelmed. And it's one of the things where I have to almost immediately cleanse, allowing just very blessed space to be around and allowing to sage and just get that positive energy back to my my full chakra alignment, because that energy can target you. And I feel like in a lot of ways negative energy finds the positive energy or stronger energy so much more quickly than positive energy to positive energy. Where whenever you're connecting with people, a lot of the times when they say misery wants company, I feel that very strongly about negative energy. It wants to sit in home until it can find its company to just load. Maybe I sometimes call it an energy vampire, where they're just sucking the good blood from you and just giving you all of the negative. And it almost feels like you have a 50-pound boulder on the back of just allowing yourself to try and maneuver with other people or other things' energy. So I think it definitely takes a large toll on me. It's something that as an adult I work around and try and learn more and just keep my circle as close knit and allow myself to connect with God as closely as I can to protect me from negative energies like that.
Could you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life, how it felt, and how you endured it?
Absolutely. I definitely think my first year out here was a very, very difficult time. I was living on campus at Johnson and Wales University, and there was definitely a lot of interesting energy there where yeah, definitely one of those things where I felt extremely impacted, and I almost questioned being out here and what I was doing. I was coming out here as a psychology major in mental health, and a lot of it I was also struggling with my own mental health, just trying to figure out if working through my mental health and feeling as much as I felt would actually work well for me, or if I was just damaging myself learning so much and trying to self-diagnose. So I was in this very interesting time of just not being very sure of myself, but trying to learn myself, and also being alone on campus. My first dorm, about the first 4 months there, was pretty small. It didn't give me a lot of thinking space. And when I had moved to another dorm, almost immediately the energy had switched, where there was just very interesting negative energy. And I remember the first day moving in there, I had put my key in a pair of pants that were in the door, and I did not lock the door. And I remember coming back from class that day, talking to my RA, just introducing myself and just welcoming to the hall. And when I went to open my door, it was locked. And from that time, I had thought, I had just moved into this dorm, and I put the key in a pair of jeans. I don't understand how this is locked. And from that, it almost again set the tone of this strong negative energy, where there was one evening that me and my partner were in the dorm, and we were just sitting communicating, not having like a conversation that we were having a disagreement, but conversation where I had one opinion and he had another opinion, and we were just conversating about what I had felt and what he had felt. And there was a quite long pause, maybe a minute pause. And from there, just this very thick, evil laugh had like thickened the whole dorm room. And it was just something that impacted me so much. I just felt chills down my spine. I just felt moved, and immediately had to like clean up the dorm room and just cleanse it. And from that moment on, I felt extremely exposed to a lot of negative energy from there, and not really knowing what to do with it, and not really knowing who to talk to about. And I'm very thankful for my partner. He's a pretty spiritual source as well, and so I didn't feel crazy about what was happening. But I definitely think that was a situation that strongly impacted me, even still to this day, where I question all the energies that I'm around.
How'd you get through that? It's just, did things kind of get better when you like moved from that?
Yeah, things definitely got a little bit better. Things were quiet for a while after blessing it. Um, Thankfully, one of our friends had some blessed holy oil, so we had marked the doors and things around that and brought in ample amounts of stones that we had just blessed over. So for a while, things were quiet. I think we felt protected for a little bit. But I definitely felt that energy of the tension of just the light of the circle that I was providing around myself and that strong negative energy that was trying to push through. So I stuck it out for the rest of the semesters, and then I quickly moved into an apartment. I knew that I was not about to deal with that type of energy, and a lot of the things that I had brought from Illinois, I kind of had to get away because it was connected to that dorm room. It had that homed energy, and I was ready to just release it all, and I didn't want any into my new unit. And I think still to this day, I am somewhat affected by that energy that still runs maybe at Johnson & Wales or could have been close by Johnson & Wales, but I feel strong enough now, and I keep growing and growing as a strong energy source to be able to kind of look out for things like that.
What's been one of the happiest moments in your life?
One of the happiest moments of my life. I hate to be cliche, but I feel like I'm living one of the happiest moments in my life right now. I feel extremely happy in who I am, where I'm at, where I've gotten to, how comfortable I am with myself, that I think I just feel extremely indulged in happiness, where I know that I can go home and there's not any crazy commotion, and I can just breathe after a long day at work and feel good and feel happy and go out into the world and be me. And I think for so long, I was so homed of what being me was that I was so concerned about what everyone else thought of what I could be. And now allowing myself to just be me, say whatever I want to say, feel however I want to feel, I feel extremely happy in this time period.
What keeps you up at night?
The witching hour totally keeps me up at night. That 3 to 4. I don't know. It's just sometimes I wake up and there it is. A lot of the times, I just can't deal with that lonely silence. So I'm very thankful that I have a little bit of commotion going on in my household with my animals, but that just very dull, almost no noise at all. It is so eerie, and it definitely keeps me up at night. And my brain too. Sometimes I feel like it just doesn't want to shut off, or for a very small time period, it'll just shut off, do its little nap thing, and then here we are, 3 a.m., and it just wants to think about all these creative ideas or all these interesting, weird facts that just don't make any sense. And I'm like, okay, we could wait on this one. But definitely just, the random things at 3 a.m.
How is it for you how is it for you being a spiritual person in a mainstream world that isn't very spiritual at all? Or if it is spiritual, it's more consumer spirituality. So how is it for you?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I've went back and forth, but I feel good. I feel confident in being spiritual, and actually love talking to people about being spiritual, having a connection with my spirituality, and also having a connection and a little different of a connection with God, and being able to just feel comfortable with it and also not feel so overwhelmed of, like you said, mainstream. It definitely is so overwhelming in such a world where when we talk about being spiritual, it's a lot of religion. It's not our connection with our Father. It's, are you participating in religious acts? And how are you giving? And I think in a lot of ways, we as humans do already give. And as young children, no matter the age that we're in, we're all still learning in the path that God has put for us. So I feel, I don't know if in my heart and soul everyone will get to that point, but I do feel that we are on an up and up of breaking that mainstream structure of religion in connection to God and spirituality in connection of God.
How is it? I know when you growing up where you grew up, did you grow up going to church too and stuff like that? So there's a structure, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I do think religion, the tools in religion, if you like, there is a spiritual component. There's no question.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know that. That happens almost on your own within, like, you have your moment when you realize, like, okay, and then, but to step out on your own and then be like, this is the way I believe, like, that does take something. Like, it takes conviction.
Yeah.
And even if it goes against almost a lot of the things you went to church with the regulation of it. So when was it when you were like, hey, this is what I believe to be true? How old were you when you were like kind of stepping into that?
I started a very strong spiritual path when I was about 17. It was definitely after my first year of high school, and I was totally ingrained of like, you go to church, this is what it's supposed to look like. And not to say that it was forced, but there was tons of structure around it. And a lot of the things I do believe a church holds very great sacredness to. But I think whenever I was 17, I had felt almost forced into a building to do these acts. When, like you said, when you step out and you do it your own and you feel your own connection, it truly is a different feeling. And it does make you feel like you're just flying and you're just so connected with your Father, your higher up, that it feels so warming to your heart. And I think it was definitely one of those things where my parents were like, oh yeah, this is weird. Like, you're not going to church, you're not doing these things, and you're collecting a lot of stones. What's going on? But I do think, I pray regularly, and I feel very connected to God, and I definitely feel that He protects me, and He's here for everyone. And we all, I do feel, have our own journey, and whatever that looks like. God puts us in these positions where we are learning and we're gathering all of these informations for His path and doing things for Him, and allowing myself to learn that church is not the basis of when I can only think of God. I can think of Him anytime, and I can pray to Him, and I can ask for forgiveness, even if it's at the shopping mall if I need to. Or if I feel weird energy and I need to stop and allow myself to talk to Him for a moment, I can do so and not feel like church is the only place that I have to do it. And I think too, growing up in the Midwest, you only get two options: very strict Christianity and very strict being Catholic. So a wide renown of different options of religion and culture and worship and things of that nature just absolutely didn't exist. You did one thing a certain way, and if you didn't, then you were just a sinner. And I think maybe that's where being out here in a more diverse city, it shows me a lot of different ways that you can put these things into action versus just one strict mindset.
What keeps you going every day?
The grind. The grind keeps me going. The idea of future, the idea of family, the idea of society, it all keeps me going. I definitely am a firm believer that we're all here for a reason. We all have a duty, as people in this world to maybe not give something, but we all work in this world to help each other some way. We all connect to little pieces no matter what that looks like. And so I'm a firm believer that my grind, my ambition for my future is what keeps me going every day. Because I know whenever I put that strong energy for me into me, then I can reciprocate it to other people and give them true, genuine feeling.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
I definitely think I would speak my mind a little bit more. I feel like right now, like I'm communicating so well, but if we were to turn this clock even just 15 years ago, I I didn't know how to speak my mind. Where even a couple of teachers thought that I was deaf because I just wouldn't communicate how I would feel or know what to say for myself. And so I think if I were in the hospital today, I would have a lot of regret of just why would I not speak up for myself and truly be the most unique version of me that there is. I guess it was a different time frame growing up in the early 2000s, but I definitely think that's something that I would maybe go back and fix. Just having a voice, having reason with speaking, because words are power.
So you're alive and well. Do you feel that you can change from this point forward, change or make amends with those regrets?
I do think so. I think that that's something that I want to work on, and it'll probably be something that will follow me for a very long time in life because that's what I grew up with. And when we have struggles, sometimes generationally, we just keep that going. But one thing I don't want to do is pass it along to my next generation. So I do hope that I can allow myself to get a grip on what I want to say and how I want to say it, and be okay if I trip up and not know what to say and say things that might seem weird to others, and just allow myself to continue being bold and having my own unique voice versus toning it down and catering it to just a certain type of person or people or group because they want to see a certain version of me.
What does being bold look like for you?
Standing absolutely outside of the crowd, being unique, being yourself, being extravagant. Bold could be going up to the mountaintop and just taking a photo, or swimming with sharks, or just speaking your mind. And I think in a lot of ways we connect words with extremely extravagant things, but I think just being bold can allow myself to, or any feeling of being bold, just to radiate beautiful energy. I think of bold as just like a rainbow. When we're talking about the word bold, it just a colorful person of just beautiful personality and wild clothing and just colorful hair maybe. It's just, but also someone that could just be themselves, someone who could say something extravagant or do something extravagant that just makes them feel on top of the world.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
I still want to make it to space. I don't think that'll ever change, and maybe one day I'll be able to get there. But as of now, realistic dream is just continue to grind and help people. I would love to be able to see where my small business blossoms to and allow myself to keep touching people with what nature has brought with us, with our stones and crystals, and just allowing myself to be strong and be a strong Black woman in this world, capture who I am inside and outside, and allow that to just flourish through my business and all of the ambitions that I have going forward. it seems like in the last even 3 years, things have changed so dramatically. Where when I moved out here, I was so gung ho on mental health, and then things kind of changed, and now I'm healing people and kind of zoning in on my natural gifts that I have. And so I think just going with the flow is where I want to see it.
You're the co-author of your life story. What's your picture perfect ending? And it's not the end. It says, if it was a movie, what's that scenic ending for you? Or that scenic last shot where it's like, damn.
Yes. When I picture it, it's just a beautiful sunset, definitely right by the ocean, and I'm just walking into the ocean. I love the water, and if I was thinking of a picture perfect ending, it would just be walking into Atlantis, if that were to exist. Just allowing myself to swim freely through the ocean. And of course, that's not the end, but whenever you're thinking about the closing of your own movie, like that's exactly what I'd want it to look like. Just peace and just happiness and just nature, just calming, doing its own course, but getting a glimpse of light and darkness, day and night, where the sun is setting. Just a whole world renowned enclosed picture of that.
That's it.
Yay.